Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're here with Krokar and the Lizardmen, going to be taking on their hated foe, the Forces of Chaos. So let's go ahead and jump straight to the army compositions. So, I have got Krokar for my lord here. Front line is 4 Saurus warriors with shields, with 4 MLG Javelin Skinks out to the sides. We've got 1 unit of Kroxgors, a Revification Crystal, a Bastiladon Solar Engine. This is primarily to deal some nice missile damage as well as apply that blind effect. We've also got 1 unit of Skink Skirmishers for some additional missile support, Skink Chief up on a Pterodon, and we've also got a Skink Priest Lore of Heavens. He's carrying Harmonic Convergence and Curse of the Midnight Wind. So the idea here is that if my opponent brings elite tier Chaos Infantry, then we can use the Curse of the Midnight Wind and Harmonic Convergence to help buff up my Saurus to win that fight. Otherwise, if he brings Shaggoths, Harmonic Convergence will help Krokar win that fight, or if he brings Enfeebling Foe, for example, it's pretty much a direct counter to that. So let's go ahead and take a look at my opponent's build. You can see he's got a couple of irregular Marauder Javelins here, front line of 3 Marauders, Chaos Marauders, 4 Chosen with Halberds. So he's gone really heavy on the elite anti-large armor piercing, and Chosen are no joke, guys. You guys have seen in some of my recent replays how scary they can be. I've got a few more coming up with them as well. I've also got 2 Marauders with throwing axes, and let's see, it looks like there's a Deathcaster hidden in the forest over here. Very fun stuff. So yeah, you can see the battle's already underway. We're doing some nice skirmishing, trying to do as much damage to the Chosen before we get engaged as possible. My opponent's getting his formation a little bit broken up here. These Marauders are coming towards these Skinks here, so we're immediately just going to pull them back and try and kind of put them in a position here to screen out these Marauders, and then just bring in the Kroxgors as a little bit of a shock type unit. These Marauders are immediately going to try and fall back, as they should. The Kroxgors are going to make contact though and just start to absolutely munch through them. It is a pretty dangerous situation though. They're Chosen with Halberds on station, so I honestly probably shouldn't leave these Kroxgors here for too long. They will start to take a lot of damage from those Chosen with Halberds, as well as the Marauders with throwing axes here. But yeah, so far so good. The Marauder Horsemen came in for a quick charge, did some okay damage to the Skink Javelins, but now they're going to take a ton of Javelin fire on the way out. These guys are super cost effective with their high unit model count. Even though they don't have too many volleys of ammunition, they can still do a ton of damage. Kroxgors, once again, just being kind of used as a shock unit here, just to blow up these Marauders real quick. And then we're getting the mainline engagement underway in earnest here. You can see Chosen with Halberds fighting up against Saurus warriors here. Definitely they would beat Saurus warriors one-on-one. You can see this one's already suffering pretty badly. Now we are going to drop that Curse of the Midnight Wind in this pocket, so all these guys down to only 90 armor. I mean, still quite impressive, but definitely helps. That minus 30 armor is important, as well as the minus 26 melee attack is also very, very important. So just debuffing their chance to hit, essentially. So in this tire pocket here, you can see this Saurus has also got Harmonic Convergence, and they're actually doing pretty decently so far. That fight is not as one-sided as you would expect with those different buffs. The Saurus are kind of starting to pull it back a little bit. Applying that blind effect from the Solar Engine will help as well. You can see these guys' melee stats is pretty much in the pits now. Over on the far side, we've been able to break a lot of the Marauders, but the Kroxgors unfortunately got inundated by one of these Chosen with Halberds and taken down. I heard a Fate of Buna going off. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was on these Skink Skirmishers. I think my opponent maybe thought they were Chameleon Skinks, but they are just the 400-point Skink Skirmishers, so a little bit of a waste of resources there, in my opinion. Probably would have been better off, honestly, to just drop it on one of these Saurus warriors. You can see between the poison and the different debuffs and buffs, we're able to pretty much beat this Chosen with this unit of Saurus warriors here. So very impressive work. Here in the center pocket, it's a little bit closer where we haven't been able to apply as many debuffs, and you saw this Saurus already took a ton of damage, but they are at least going to hold for some time and allow this Solar Engine to fire in from the rear. It'll do some pretty solid damage here to these Chosen fighting in the pits. Krokar honestly doesn't really have a good place to go here, so I'm kind of just keeping him in the back lines secure, just not trying to risk him too much against the Halberds here. No reason to lose leadership like that when I can just fight in the pits with my Saurus as much as possible. You can see this unit of Chosen with Halberds is going to lose another Curse of the Midnight Wind. So because I have those 2 spells, I can just sink all of my Winds of Magic into buffing and debuffing this entire pocket. Well, I guess, yeah, buffing and debuffing. But Sigvald's going to come in the far side here. He is my opponent's lord, of course. He's got the regeneration and all that jazz. but he's definitely going to get put down by Krokar pretty hard. My opponent is dropping that consistent Spirit Leech, and honestly, you know, Spirit Leech is a pretty solid spell overall. You see it in a lot of competitive builds. Against the Lizardmen, though, I would honestly recommend against Lore of Death, because they have so many different healing mechanics, like this Rev Crystal. I have 3 charges of Cold-Blooded in this army, and so on. It's going to be hard to make those, you're going to end up sinking most of your magic into that without getting a huge payoff, because your opponent has so much healing. So I would recommend, honestly, bringing Lore of Shadows, and we'll kind of talk about that in the endgame screen here, but you can see the Chosen just getting smacked by Saurus on one side and kicked by Skinks on the other side. It's a really bad situation for them. These guys are getting blown up by that Rev Crystal. We did just drop a nice rock from the Skink Priest. Lord of Heavens did some okay damage there. You know, got 1 kill. Not too bad. But, yeah, Krokar is just kind of in the back line at this point. I'm honestly just using him to screen out a lot of these missiles, and he's going to take a lot of damage from those Marauders with throwing axes, but I do have, you know, the healing on station as well, and I should be bringing over these Skink Skirmishers relatively shortly to help deal some missile damage to them also. But yeah, Krokar, with the amount of healing I have, I'm not too worried about him in the back line there. Mostly just want to focus on this fight here, where we brought in Skinks now to fight the Chosen because the Saurus were driven off. It's a pretty desperate situation when, you know, when the Skinks are fighting Chosen, but we've been able to pretty much beat this one group of Chosen here. You can see they're gone. This other group of Chosen is getting very, very low. Their leadership is pretty shaky at this point, honestly, and Krokar is going to catch the Deathcaster in the back line and take him off the battlefield. So yeah, that Deathcaster just immediately took a huge amount of burst damage. The Forbidden Rod popped as well at the same time, so that might honestly finish him off, or at least shatter him. Let's see. The Forbidden Rod does cause damage to him, so looks like it's barely stopped there, and so he didn't finish himself off there, unfortunately for me. But you can see the balance of power is already pretty heavily in my favor. We're going to bring the Solar Engine, which used all of its ammo in here to just drop a quick Terror Bomb and try and rout off some of these Chosen. Of course, they're not immune to Psychology. They do have very good leadership, so they're hard to Terror rout, but you can Terror rout them still. You can see Krokar still relatively healthy. He's getting closer to his healing cap, but honestly at this point we're so far ahead on the balance power, I'm pretty confident that we can pull things out here. Sigvald is getting relatively close to his healing cap as well, so yeah. Just this one group of relatively healthy Chosen here, still inundated by Skinks and Saurus. We're going to get the Pain Train rolling here and bring in this big blob, especially the Stillodon here, to just drop some quick terror and get these Chosen off the battlefield. So yeah, Krokar again screening out these missiles here. At this point they've used up pretty much all of their ammo and still haven't been able to take down Krokar, so that was more or less my intention in having Krokar kind of screen out in the back line there. Since my opponent didn't have any other mobile units to support, like you know, Dragon Ogres or anything, we're going to bring Krokar in now and just drop some more Alpha Strike Terror and just rout off a lot of the units in this pocket here. So we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit through this late game situation as I kind of chase some of these Marauder units around and terrify them, and then they come back from routing. And we do have some Skinks though that are going to be going to chase down these Chosen with Halberds. It's going to be a very cost-effective use of them. They're going to be able to get in here and keep these Chosen routed more or less. And this one unit of Chosen specifically still has quite a few unit models. Looks like they have 24 unit models still, about 1600 HP, so they could potentially come back and do some work. But at this point, there's just too many Lizardmen on the field. You can see Sigvald's getting pounded on by Krokar here, and as soon as he starts to lose too much of his health, he is at his healing cap at this point. So once he starts to lose more of his health and gets, you know, routed off, then it's going to be GG for the Forces of Chaos. So very well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this battle. It was a very, very fun battle. Not a typical, you know, Shaggoth type build, so it's interesting to see that Chosen build. And yeah, I was able to drag him down with Saurus. You can see 2 of my Saurus, although they didn't get very many kills, managed to pick up an XP Chevron, just trading extremely cost effectively versus those 2 Chosen there. The other Chosen managed to pick up some Chevrons. They did some pretty good work, especially against the Kroxigors, who mostly just got kills on the Marauders. Marauders just kind of got run over there a little bit, but it is to be expected. 66 kills and an XP Chevron on the Solar Engine as well. Did some very nice work against the Chosen and applying that continuous blind effect. The Skink Chief was mostly shooting at the Marauder Horsemen the whole time. Oh, those were actually Marauder Horsemasters. I didn't even notice. Krokar, you know, didn't have to do a whole lot. There wasn't a lot of large targets in my opponent's army, which I guess was kind of the idea here, is you don't give Krokar a lot of good targets to get in on. And, yeah, I mean, the skink cohorts with javelins more or less did their jobs. For my opponent, the Chosen with halberds obviously a very strong pick here. Marauder Horsemasters, I think you could just bring 4 Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes and it would be a bit better. I mean, obviously the Horsemasters are going to be a little bit better against Pterodons, but I honestly think you just bring the throwing axes regardless. They're still going to be good against the Pterodons if you have to press them into that situation. Sigvald's not a bad pick here, although you're kind of sacrificing your tactical usefulness for him just not getting gooned, which, you know, is nice in and of itself. But let's go ahead and talk about the Chaos matchup a little bit here. I have featured this matchup on my channel quite a few times, but I just want a quick refresher because I haven't looked at it in a while. So if we go to Chaos here, as I said with the Lore of Magic, you're going to end up sinking most of your Winds of Magic if you try and bring Spirit Leech and Fate of Buna with Lore of Death. So I honestly recommend bringing Lore of Shadows instead. That way you can bring Enfeebling Foe. You can potentially bring Penumbral Pendulum as well, which is really decent against Lizardmen Infantry. Mostly it's the Enfeebling Foe. You could also potentially bring the Withering as well to help pull some of the armor off the big dinos if you wanted to. Something like this is pretty typical of what I would bring. Kolek, I think, is the best pick here, honestly. You do have to be careful of getting hunted by Krokar, but in the right situation, he can win out on that fight. A couple of Chosen with halberds is pretty good. I don't know if I would go that heavy to go so many. I personally like to have mobile forces a little bit better, so I would probably take some Dragon Ogres instead. And then, let's see, a few Meat Shield Marauders isn't a bad idea, and then we'll go ahead and juice up with some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. We'll grab 4 of those. We still have about 700 points here, so we could come in and play with some different things. And potentially try and come up with a little bit more spend here, but this is something that I would recommend a little bit more. Even if you were to cut these Dragon Ogres and go with Chaos Knights, it just gives you something with that mobile hitting power, as opposed to the Chosen, which are kind of static and have to be, because they're so slow, you know, you kind of are dictated by your opponent in what you can do with them, in what engagements you can take, more or less. I mean, sometimes you can just punch through super hard, but the Chaos Knights with Lances or Dragon Ogres both would be very useful here. If you went with the Chaos Knights with Lances, you would have enough to maybe grab a regular Chaos Warrior with Halberd. That would help give you a little bit more anti-large armor piercing in the front line. Yeah, honestly, I think something like this might be a little bit better. It's tough to say, you know, it's a tough matchup, especially against a skilled player, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.